My idea is to create a media brand that revolves around soccer content for an Australian audience. This involves a podcast starring Callum and I, which will be comedic in nature, but will also naturally have a focus on soccer, as it is an area we bond over. An interesting and humorous dynamic will arise, as Callum is not as involved in the soccer community as I am. This dynamic will help others not as engrossed in the sport to relate to our content. The brand will also involve weekly highlight videos of my soccer team with my commentary over it. I'll be specifically focusing on the podcast as I currently cannot play soccer due to lockdown restrictions. Since ideating, I've critically observed the podcast and soccer YouTube channels that I regularly consume. I've talked to friends and family about the idea of a podcast and have spoken to Callum about the angle we would take to engage our audience. To begin prototyping the idea, Callum and I need to begin filming weekly hour-long episodes of the podcast. We plan to discuss current events, soccer, our joint FIFA club, and, most importantly, the UK Love Island. This will involve aggregating content through various planned segments and comedic bits. The podcast will involve conversation about soccer, diluted with popular culture to make it more palatable to those with a recreational interest. The podcast prototyping process will be fast through filming for an hour each week and editing being finished that day. Relatedly, it will be tiny as it will replace existing oral conversations we already have weekly. It will be inexpensive as we are using existing equipment we own. The concept is simple enough, leaving us enough room to be creative and funny. From this, we will get feedback from friends and family and use it to help us refine the format of our podcast, improving our own comedic skills. User feedback will be most important when it comes to sustaining audience engagement throughout the podcast episode. Our brand is relevant to our users as it will make soccer more palatable to an Australian audience. We also aim to be funny outlets for those suffering through difficult times. The podcast and YouTube videos will fit my portfolio and future career by increasing my experience in creating and editing this style of content. Callum and I are super excited to get recording. Tune in weekly and check out our social media on screen.